Okay, finally, I'm live. And this is Choi Sak Gerland, the non joiner. And I'm going to discuss to you about Nehemiah chapter 13, where we see God so concerned about his house, the house of God. And I'm going to read, uh, actually, this is about reforms. Nehemiah, the governor, no, it was actually Nehemiah was the bodyguard of the king of uh, what they call that kingdom, King of Persia. He was the bodyguard, but he acted as governor of the remnants of Israel that went back from exile. Okay, so that's Nehemiah. That's what's Nehemiah all about. And chapter 13, he discusses on the final reforms that God made through Nehemiah, through the ministry of Nehemiah. And I'm going to read particularly the passage on verse 10. I also learned, sabi ni Nehemiah, I also learned that the portions assigned to the Levites had not been given them, had not been given them, and that all the Levites and the musicians responsible for the service had gone back to their own fields. So I rebuked the officials and asked them, why is the house of God neglected? Then I called them together and stationed them at their posts. The moment Nehemiah learned that the priests, the Levites, and the musicians abandoned their posts at the temple and went back to their regular jobs, which is not supposed to be, uh, which which uh, which wasn't supposed to be happening. Because once you are a priest, you are a Levite, you are dedicated. You should devote your life to serving God in the temple. That's your life. No? Hindi ka hindi ka dapat gumagawa ng ibang bagay. No? Just serve God in the temple. When Nehemiah learned about that, he was angry and he rebuked the people, the officials particularly, and he asked, this is what he asked. This was his question. Why is the house of God neglected? You see that? You neglect the servants, you neglect the house. Because the house of God is really about no, uh, taking good care of the servants. Bakit? Ganito yan eh. Bakit gusto ng Panginoon maganda yung temple? First of all, it's because of His glory. Okay? Kasi ang temple, during those times in the Old Testament, the temple was where the glory of God rested in Jerusalem. So, sabi ng Panginoon, oh, build that temple and I will put my name there. Sabi ng Panginoon kay Solomon. So Solomon built the temple. So the purpose was for the glory of God to dwell there. Number two, it was for his servants, the priests. Kaya maganda yung temple because that temple will be the office, quote unquote, uh, will be the working site, the job site of the priests, the servants of the Lord. And doon sa temple, there should be provisions. There are storerooms doon sa temple at doon nilalagay yung mga provisions. Because each tribe was required to give their 10% for the Levites, for the workers, for the priests, for the high priest. Yung mga priests naman, mga Levites, they were to give their 10% to the high priest. Okay, the sons of Aaron. So ganun dapat yun. Ganun ang sistema ng Panginoon. No? You provide for the servant of God. Because if you are not providing for the servant of God, no, if you're not providing well for the servant of God, your temple is useless. Okay, let's put that in our time, in the New Testament times. No? Marami kasing churches, I personally witnessed this, no, because uh, uh, Years back, I was invited to speak in, to a lot of churches, different denominations. So I was invited to speak, and one of the things I observed sa mga ibang churches, I'm not saying all churches are like this, but what I observed in some churches is that, and quite a number of them, no? There's quite a number of them. What I observed is that pinagaganda nila yung church nila, yung altar nila, but they're neglecting their pastors. I see that. No? Meron pa ako. There is one church, you will not believe this. There is one church I did a revival service in. So, ang ganda ng altar nila. And ayaw nila, ang ganda ng floor, ang ganda, grabe. And ayaw nila magasgasan yung floor and everything. Okay, so, pero ang kinalungkot ko, no, no, almost poverty line, okay, almost poverty line ang sweldo. And nung ko, yung church decided that, okay, pakainin natin si uh, stabilize connection. I'm just wondering why in the morning it keeps, no, the signal keeps getting unstable. Pero sa hapon, hindi naman. Pero I cannot understand it. Pero pagka ginamit ko naman yung YouTube using my cell phone, uh, wala naman ganyan. No? Your signal is unstable. Wala naman ganyan. But I cannot use my cell phone because mahina ang microphone. You will have to use an earphone to hear what I'm saying. Okay, anyway. So, kumakain ako ganun, sarap ng kinakain ko. I was the guest speaker and the pastor of the church was just watching me. Sabi ko, tara, pastor, kain tayo. Ay, hindi. Sabi niya gano'n kasi sabi ng church board, listen to this, sabi ng church board, sa'yo lang yan. Hindi kami pwede kumain yan. What? Sabi ko, no? Sino nagsabi nun? Church board. Para sa'yo lang daw yan. Kami, hindi kami pwede kumain yan. Sarap-sarap. So, that's a lot of nonsense. Come on. No? Come on, join me. And doon yung asawa niya, mga anak niya. Hindi nga, kain tayo. Parang nahihiya pa sila. May mahihiya. No? Lingkod kayo ng Diyos. Para sa inyo dapat ito. And it's funny that there are really churches like that. They're set in church board. No? Some of them, hindi lahat. Some of them, they're so happy when they give their pastors poverty line salaries. Yan talagang sagad, no? Napakaliit na sweldo. And kasi no, they're happy when they are able to control their pastor. And they're able to control their pastor when they give their pastor low salaries. Yun yun. I don't know where they got the idea. It's demonic to be sure. It's demonic to be sure. And Nehemiah himself, no? Nehemiah, the servant of God. He's also a prophet. Okay, that is more like he's more like a governor. Okay, so even Nehemiah, the patriarch, got angry the moment he learned that the priests and the Levites were being neglected. Parang sinasabi ni Nehemiah, what's the use of your temple? Okay, what's the use of the house of God? What's the use of building the house of God if no, yung kanyang servants are neglected? Because Nehemiah is about building the walls. Uh, Ezra, Ezra, the book of Ezra is about building the temple. Nehemiah was about Nehemiah is about building the walls around Jerusalem, rebuilding the walls. Okay, sabi niya ganun. Okay, we rebuilt the temple, but you see, it's all useless. It's all useless. I don't care how magnificent the new temple is. Okay, we have by the grace of God we have rebuilt it, but it's useless. It's zero. It's garbage if the servants are neglected. You see, you mga church members, you Christians, you born again Christians, it's useless na i-prioritize nyo yung building yung building fund. You have your building fund. You raise that up. Okay, it's useless to prioritize that if your pastor is being neglected, and a lot of pastors connive with that. No, nakikikontsaba na akala nila yung martyr, feeling martyr. Hindi bali na, no? Okay lang na wala muna akong sweldo or bawasan yung sweldo ko basta magkaroon ng building fund because no, ang church importante. That's the priority because that's the house of God. All those things are garbage thinking because that's not the will of God. Don't uh, don't set up your own standard. Always um, always assume the standards of God. Andiyan na yung standard ng Panginoon. You don't have to set your own standards. Andiyan na yung standard ng Panginoon, kunin mo na lang and implement faithfully. That's it. No? God never said na yung temple building ay priority over His servants. Okay? So, yung temple building, kasi noon naman, nung hindi pa naitalaga si Levi, yung mga Levites, no, the tribe of Levi, wala naman templo eh. Okay? Kahit nag-build lang sila ng altar of stones. That was what Abraham did, Jacob, Isaac. Wala pa silang templo. But then, when God dedicated the tribe of Levi, the Levites, to His service, no? Doon na yung nagkaroon ng tabernacle, no? Para doon ipe-perform ng mga priests ang kanilang service sa Panginoon. No? First it was the tabernacle, and later on when they were established as a nation beyond the Jordan River, when Joshua and the Israelites were able to cross the Jordan River and settle there, conquer na nila yung land. And then finally, David was there, King David was there, and Solomon, his son, was able to actually build a temple. That temple was built so that the priests, whom God dedicated for His service, were able to, so that they were able to do their thing, their service to God. Okay? Kaya lang mayroong temple. Kaya yung church nyo, yung church building nyo, no, kung gagawa kayo ng church building, na tinapos na rin ng Panginoon. Actually, yung building, mga religious building na yan, ano yan eh, no? It's an ended, it's a done era. Okay? And Jesus ended that when He declared in John 10 and followed that up by saying 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and 6, chapters 3 and chapters 3 and 6. Nasabi niya ganun, our bodies are the temple of it. Merong cross, merong and all that. Tapos, merong magandang altar. Maraming churches, no? Patay na patay silang pagandahin yung kanilang altar. Bibili sila na those things are okay, but those things are okay. Those things are okay, but you find them making an idol of the musical instruments, mga sound system, mga choir, they devote so much time for this. They devote so much energy and money for this. Now you see that now they have developed an idol in their hearts through these things, by these things. Hindi naman priority yan eh. Ang priority natin, si Lord, yung presensya niya, that we get His spoken word, we get His kingdom principles, and implement. Yun ang priority, not any religious structure. Okay, so I'm just discussing this for people who think that church buildings are still important. No, they pour all their resources. No, sinasayang nila yung pera nila. They raise funds for that. Sinasayang nila yung pera nila, yung energy nila, nai-stress sila, not just to build that religious structure, which is zero in the spiritual realms. In the spiritual realms, they do not count. You see, so don't expect yourself to be rewarded come Judgment Day because you have a beautiful building for your church. No reward for that. Okay, so If you're the kind of church or Christian, no, you still believe na dapat mayroong magandang church building, make sure that you are not neglecting your pastor because it becomes no, it all redounds to nothing. It all redounds to emptiness. Everything becomes empty when you neglect the servant of God. Okay, dapat nga ito kingdom principle. Listen to this. Kingdom principle, pastors should not be given salaries. Salaries? Hindi. That's not kingdom principle. You never find salaries. You never find the idea of uh, servants of God being given salaries. You never find that in the Bible. You don't find that especially in the ministry of Jesus Christ, in the ministry of the apostles. Okay, you know what they're given? The connection is unstable. Come on, stabilize it. And you know, you know what servants of God were given, even in the Old Testament, the whole tithes and offering, the whole tithes and offering. Okay, um, not just the salary, but the whole tithes and offering. Ganito yan eh. Yung tithes and offering belongs to God. And hindi naman niya nakakain yun eh. Di ba? Kaya sabi ng Panginoon, yung tithes and offering ninyo, yung mga crops, yung mga produce nyo, ilagay nyo rin sa house ko that they may be food in my house. Yan sabi niya sa Malachi, di ba? That there may be food in my house. O food, sino kakain ng food? Si God? No. Okay? Hinintay ko na mag-stabilize. So that there may be food in my house. So sino kakain ng food na yun? It was not God who ate those food, it was his servants. So whatever you gave God belong to his servants. Kasi sabi ng Panginoon, the priests, no? I am their portion. Sabi niya kay Levi, no? Mga Levites, tribe of Levi, I'm not giving you any inheritance when it comes to real estate, to land, to properties. I'm not giving you any inheritance because I am your portion. Ibig sabihin, kung ano yung akin sa inyo. Because I am your portion. Okay? Okay, pinadaan ko yung sasakyan. So, no, lahat ng tithes and offering were given to the Levites. Lahat. Okay? So yung mga Levites, they divided that and then meron silang 10%. Out of the 10% na binigay sa kanila, okay? Meron silang 10% na bibigay kay Aaron or to the high priest. That's how it worked. Okay? The high priest was not given a salary. He was given the tithes of the tithes. Now, part of the tithes and offering, nandoon din yung pagbigay nila sa mga poor, sa mga widows, sa mga orphans, sa mga foreigners. No? Yung mga love offering nila para sa mga taong ito were taken from the tithes and offering. Okay? The tithes and offering were never used for building the temple or for repairing the temple. The tithes and offering were never used for that. Okay? Ang ginamit nila yung temple tax. There was such a thing as temple tax. Nakalagay sa kahon yun, no? The priests. Nilalabas nila yon at doon nilalagay ng mga tao yung donations nila for the repair of the temple. They did not use tithes and offering for that. Okay? So, ganun yon. So today, no, yung tithes and offering nyo, dapat binibigyan nyo lahat yan sa pastor. Ang karamihan ng simbahan, you see, this is sin. Kasalanan is not, they get yung pangbayad ng electric bill, pangbayad ng rent, pangbayad ng water bill, pambayad na offering, mga general offering, mga missions offering, mga district offering, etc., etc. Yung ibang church, doon kinukuha. As the pastor, for the priest, for the servants of God, alone. And then pagka merong nangangailangan of poor people, who can be widows, that will be assisted by the church. Meron siyang standard doon na binigay niya kay Timothy. Okay? I think Timothy or Titus. Just look it up. So, uh, uh, yun ang gamit ng tithes and offering. So yung salary, it's not biblical. It's a worldly standard that we should get rid of. Okay? Ayaw ng Panginoon ng world's ways. See? If Nehemiah finds out about that, if he were alive today, he's going to get angry and he's going to rebuke these churches na naggagawa. So sabi niya gano'n, why is the house of God neglected? Verse 11 of Nehemiah chapter 13. Why is the house of God neglected? Okay? You neglect the servants of God. You neglect you neglect the priests. You neglect your pastor. You neglect the house of God. I don't care how how you beautify, how you improve, how you remodel your church. I don't care how grand, ganda ng church nyo. If the man of God is neglected, and particularly if you do not use God's system, and dapat lahat ng tithes and offering should be given to the pastor. Yun ang sistema, yun ang principle nun. Okay? Like in the book of Acts, they sold their properties, yung mga church members, they sold their properties and they laid down the money at the feet of the apostles. The apostles were not given salaries. Whoever thought of that? Whoever had a bright idea that pastors and would just be given salaries? No, the people sold their properties and laid down the money from the sales at the feet of the apostles, and the apostles distributed yung money according to anyone who had need. Siyempre sila kasali ron, to anyone who had need. Walang salaries. Imagine Jesus Christ being given salary by his disciples, by his women disciples. That's preposterous. Okay, so let's turn to Galatians 6:6. Ito importante to eh. No? Importante to. If you are a believer of Jesus Christ, this is important. Galatians 6:6, ang sabi ni Paul, sabi ng Panginoon kay Paul, okay? Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Okay, no? Ano sabi ni Paul? Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share tithes and offerings, should share 10%. Yun ba sinabi ni Paul? No? Yung nakaka-receive daw ng instructions in the word. No, ikaw, disciple ka, no? At you receive mga instructions, mga pagtuturo sa Panginoon through the word of God. Nakaka-receive ka through your discipler. What are you going to give? Your tithes and offering? Just 10%? No. Sabi ni Paul, should share all good things. Not just tithes and offering. Not just tithes and offering, but all good things with their instructor or discipler or pastor. Anyway, when you give your tithes and offering, you have not given anything yet. Bear that in mind. You have not given anything yet, because tithes and offering are you just return them to God. God owns them, and you just returned your tithes and offering to God. You have not yet given anything. So sabi ni Paul dito, If you receive instruction in the word, you should share all good things with your instructor, with your discipler, with your pastor. So aside from tithes and offering, you should share all good things. It doesn't mean na bibigay mo lahat kay pastor. Share mo all good things. For instance, no, ka-receive ka ng bonus. Yung ibang company, some people work for companies that give uh, several bonuses. Merong mid-year bonus, merong quarterly bonus. No? That's that's a good thing. No? Sabi ni Paul, share all good things. Now, when you receive bonuses like that, you should share that. Kunyari, meron kang investment sa stocks. Kumita ka. No? Karoon ka ng dividends. That's good. That's a good thing. Now you should share all good things to your instructor. What else? May natuwa sa'yo. No? Biglang binigyan ka ng, okay? You should share all good things. Meron mga companies, they do not just give their employees 13th month pay. They also give 14th month, 15th month, and so forth and so on. Those you should share all good things with your instructor. He was a bodyguard and he was good at wrestling. Wrestler, he was a wrestler. Si Nehemiah. How did I know mga taong paloko-loko lang, hindi siniseryoso ang Panginoon? Sabi niya, I pulled their hair and I beat them. Pulling the hair and beating, that's a sign of, that's a wrestling technique. You see? And you will not become bodyguard of the king if you don't know self-defense. Because Nehemiah, he was a cupbearer. Ibig sabihin, before, cupbearer of the king. Before the king drinks any drink or any wine, ikaw muna ang titikim. So that if poison is found, if poison was found in the drink, ikaw muna unang mamamatay. So that indicates that Nehemiah was the king's personal bodyguard. And as personal bodyguard, hindi lang yun ang trabaho mo. Ikaw muna malalason. Hindi. That's just one of your jobs. No? And part of your job is to defend the king in case of a sudden attack. And that means you have to be ready. You have to know some self-defense and martial arts. And during that time, there was already martial arts that the Jews were able to develop. You know, so be careful. If you want if you want God to be pleased, no, please His servant. Yan yan eh. Ngayon, kayo mga servants, kayo mga pastors, no, church leaders, mga bishops. Maraming bishops ngayon eh. Bishops. Okay? Before, yung iba kasi nagre-require. Yeah. I've heard a lot of pastors and even bishops who require their church members, their um, churches that are members of their flock. They require na magbigay sa kanya. My goodness. Kasi ito yung standard ng Panginoon eh. Before you do that, if you're going to require, Jesus did not require anything. Pero before you require, if for instance, no, that is your principle, nagre-require ka na magbigay yung mga members mo, kapal ng mukha mo, no? Okay? This should be your standard. Yung pinapakain mo sa tao, ang quality dapat is, no, it should have a high quality that's it's able to feed 5,000 and they are satisfied. Alam mo yung sabi ng gospel, when Jesus fed 5,000, okay, all were satisfied. They ate and they were satisfied. That's symbolic. Symbolic. Before you require. Sabi ng Panginoon, ano ba meron tayo dyan? No, yung 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, ang nagbigay nun was a boy, according to John yata. Yeah, I think according to the gospel according to John. Okay, it was a boy who provided that, and out of that, Jesus fed 5,000 men. If you're preaching No? If your spiritual instruction is also have that high quality, now just a small teaching feed 500 can feed 5,000 people. Maliit lang yun, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. If you're going to require that, make sure that your teaching, your preaching uh, has the same quality that Jesus got. Jesus gave 5,000 people and they were satisfied. See? But normally, you should not require. Yung mga nag-support kay Jesus Christ, they gave them willingly. Hindi niya sinabi doon sa bata, bata, no, akin na yan. Ang sabi ng Panginoon, no, give them something to eat. Pero sabi ng mga disciples niya, Lord, no, para pakainin natin yung 5,000 men na yan at counting the women. No, it's gonna cost us a lot. Nung narinig ng bata yun, he willingly gave yung kanyang 5 loaves and 2 fish to uh, Philip. I think it was Philip, and Philip told Andrew, and Andrew told the Lord. No? So, ganun na nangyari. The small boy heard, no? For some reason, he was there, malapit kay Jesus, and he heard the disciples asking Jesus about how to feed the 5,000 men, and he willingly donated yung baon niya. You see, siya lang ang may baon, yung bata. Ibig sabihin, itong bata na to, I don't know how young he was so serious about Jesus na siya lang ang nakaisip magbaon. Ibig sabihin, he planned to be there for the long haul. While the others, yung mga adults, hindi sila nagbaon. Okay? Pero itong bata na to, nagbaon. Ibig sabihin, plinano niya, I'm gonna stay with Jesus till the end. And when he heard the need, he donated his baon. And that was what Jesus did. This small boy understood the Nehemiah chapter 13 principle. Do not neglect servants of God. See, God is powerful.